Damn, son, where'd you find this? Rock with your boys.
All right, you're looking live at Generation and Generation Cowboys and Sports Talks. I'm the host, DJ I Tell You What, and I'm joined with my co-host, my dad, Cowboy Joe 64, and we are back with another one. What's today? Tuesday? We're back with another one on Tuesday, and it's a lot of stuff going on in training camp, right? Well, a lot of stuff, surrounding Micah's contract, and I thought we would have an interesting segment today. I was looking on Reddit last night, and so I was just thinking that we would just go over and we would just look at the Reddit, one of the Dallas Cowboys Reddits, and just kind of give our opinion about what some of the fans are talking about on Reddit. And so I feel like that would be pretty interesting because you have a lot of people out on Reddit that they just be talking crazy. And you just, it's just, you can get to see what other people are saying and thinking about the Cowboys from the outside world, not just podcasters, but just random people. And it's kind of funny, but it's kind of interesting. A lot of people have good points, but it also kind of shows you how we separate ourselves from the majority of people with the amount of with our perspective. So you want to say what's up to the people, and then let's just kind of start off with diving into what do you think is going to happen overall with Michael's contract?
So what are they saying on Reddit?
I mean, it's a when we do that, it's gonna be a rabbit hole. We're gonna be going down. We're gonna be going on forever on that.
So what I kind of think is happening is we're kind of in a hold up period because of TJ Watt and the defensive end from Cincinnati. So I'm thinking that it's kind of a cat. What's his name?
Trey Hendrickson.
So it's kind of a cat and mouse game. I think Michael wants to be the last one to sign. Well, I should say Michael's agent probably wants him to be the last one to sign. So I think that's kind of what's holding it up. But I think, Michael's going to put the Cowboys in a tough position because he's going to go to camp. He's going to be there. And it's going to be something that they never dealt with before. They're going to have a player that's in camp knowing that he wants a new deal. And he's not going to be doing all of the drills, but he's going to be there. So that's going to put them in a tough position if it's not done by then.
I think I said this about like 6 or 7 months ago that Michael was going to do this because I couldn't think of anything that he would do that would put pressure on them. And so I literally thought about that for a long time. And I said that a long time ago. It might have been longer than 6 months ago. I said, Micah gonna come to practice like he doing. Remember, I kept saying that Micah, at practice, he be acting like a coach anyway. They be having him coaching the other players. And so that's really what he's doing. And it's kind of just like, we said that's going to put pressure on them because he's going to be in camp. And then you think about it, the more he goes hard at practice, the more pressure is on them because it's just like you got your player out here that's going to get hurt. If you don't get him signed and he gets hurt, then he's going to, and you don't get him signed and he gets hurt, he doesn't play, and he can go somewhere else after next year. So you just messing up everything. So my thing is Trey Hendrickson. Now we know how Cincinnati does business. What's saying that Trey Hendrickson doesn't get a deal this offseason? Because I'm thinking that that's a very high possibility that he doesn't get a deal. He'll go into the season. He might get tagged, or he'll go into the season. You know how Cincinnati does business, and it took them forever to sign T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. So what makes them think that Trey Hendrickson is going to get signed? And then the same thing with TJ Watt. TJ Watt, who's to say he won't get tagged, or who's to say he won't be won't be going into the season without a contract?
So that's the thing. The games that these agents play, that's the game that Jerry and Steven are playing. So we're gonna see. Look, the clock is ticking. The end of July is gonna be here before we know it. So that's when everybody's cards are gonna be on the table. So we're gonna see. I know what Micah's gonna do. I don't think Micah's gonna do a whole lot in camp. He's just gonna be there. He's gonna do a lot of the walkthroughs. He's gonna do a lot of the install. He's gonna be out on the field. He's gonna be suited up, but I don't think he's gonna be doing any drills. I'm sure his agent wasn't happy with him last week, whenever that was when he started. He did a couple of drills, so I just don't see Micah doing that in camp. I think he's gonna be there. He's gonna do a lot of the stuff that's safe, and that's it.
Yeah. So what do you think what do you think is ultimately going to happen? Where are you swaying at as far as like what do you think? You think he'll get a deal done before July, or you think it'll be before the season, or you think he's going to go into the season without a deal?
If I had to predict, it'll be before camp, and then if it's not, it'll be right after camp starts. I don't think the Cowboys are gonna drag this out. And again, this May, Boss Cowboy pointed this out, and Brian Broaddus hinted around to it as well. Shout out to Broaddus and Boss. They hinted around to the fact that it's really the agent, it's not the Cowboys, and I believe it.
Yeah. I mean, but it that is true. I mean, you can look at it from that perspective, but when you look at it from that perspective, I've been playing chess a lot lately, and when you play chess a lot, what it make you do is it make you think about other things it make you think about the reaction of something. So, like for instance, like when I think about if it's the agent, well, I think about okay, if it's the agent, then that means the Cowboys put him in this position. You see what I'm saying? That means that it's not the Cowboys. It could be the agent, but in order for the agent to get to this point, that means that it would have had to be the Cowboys' lack of communication for him to get to this point. So once he gets to this point, it makes no sense business-wise for him to reach out. And if he doesn't reach out, which I don't see him reaching out unless Micah demands that he reach out and say, hey, man, I'm not trying to be the highest paid. I don't really care about the 4 or 5 million that's left over. And I really think that's what Jerry and Micah was talking about. I think Jerry has came out. Remember when shout out to Boss when we played that Boss shut up that interview with us about Jerry and how Jerry was talking about the financial commitment and the business parameters of being a Cowboy after the season or after you're not a player anymore. I think that's what Jerry and Micah is talking about, and it's factored into this contract. Like, listen, man, I mean, I got you. The highest paid jersey in the world. I got you, I'm going to get you, this Bleacher Report thing that you're doing. I'm going to spearhead that, what I'm saying, to turn that into a multi-million dollars. I'm going to turn your brand. I'm going to help you get your brand to be as big as the Cowboys. And that's the reason why you should sacrifice $10 million or $5 million right now. Just get this deal done. And we can circle the wagons in 10 years, because I mean that's probably what it's going to be. It's going to be a huge contract. We can circle it. We can break the bank, make you the highest paid, knowing that TJ Watt, knowing that those guys are going to come right behind you and reset the market. But let's just go ahead and get this done, because in the end, they're not going to make us nowhere near as much money as you at your brand, period, just because you play for the Cowboys.
I just don't think Micah, in his own mind, without his agent, I don't see him saying to himself that he's going to take 5 million less. Probably what Micah is going to say is that whenever his deal is done, he wants to be the highest paid defensive player ever. Now, could that end up being 5 million less if those guys sign after him? Yeah, that's possible. But he's not Micah himself. You know him as a businessman, and you've been following his career with what he's doing with Bleacher Report and all that stuff. So no matter what, he's gonna be the highest paid. Now, the less part, that's gonna come after the fact if TJ Watt and so there was it was one of the receivers, or was it a quarterback? There was somebody just signed a contract recently, and they were expected to be the highest paid, and they ended up taking less. Who was that? It was somebody that I don't think
T. Higgins.
No, it wasn't T. Higgins. What did a quarterback just sign recently? The name escapes me at the moment. But anyway, where I'm going with all of that, I don't see Micah doing that. Micah's gonna be the highest paid, and he's gonna do that in his own mind. So I don't think Jerry's gonna be able to sell him on that.
That's where our difference of opinion comes in at, because like I said, like you said, I've been following Micah before he was what's up, B Bird? Shout out to you. if you haven't checked out our video, our last live video, go check it out. We had B Bird on, and it was an awesome show. I think it was the best show we've ever done.
Yeah,
So
it was a
go
great.
check it
Well, it
out.
was
It
our
was
best.
yeah, it was definitely our best, hands down. It was a great show. I learned a lot from my daddy B Bird on that show, and so that show I've watched that show myself probably 3 or 4 times just because. So B Bird definitely one of the OGs, definitely one of the most knowledgeable people I've met when it comes to them. He thinks just like my dad. They think alike, So shout out to B Bird. But anyways, like I was saying, and shout out to your son, B Bird. Anyways, what I was saying, um,
You were
I,
talking about Michael maybe taking less just because so he can
yeah,
get it done.
I've been following Micah before he was a Cowboy. I remember when Micah was sitting out during the COVID year. I remember following Micah, because I like Jahan Dotson, you know, and so I was following Micah, and so Micah is the type of person where he was like one of my favorite players coming out of college, even when he set out 2020. I just don't see Micah trying to be a big stickler on. "Nah, I got to be the highest paid and all that. I just think that Micah is just the kind of guy to where he's just like, listen, man, it's not always about the money with me. I ain't tripping. You know what I mean? I know I'm gonna get paid what I'm worth, but I'm not gonna make a big deal out of me not getting an extra 5 or an extra 6. I ain't really worried about that. That's just what I think. Now we'll eventually we're gonna see. So we're gonna find out. But we know one thing for sure. Micah's gonna come and he's gonna show up, and that's just the type of person he is. But see, those things align with kind of what I'm saying. If he was a stickler on trying to be the highest paid, then why show up? Because that puts more pressure, or that puts pressure the same way it does if you show up. It's just a different kind of pressure. So I mean, like if you want to do the ultimate pressure, you don't play, and if you don't play, then that just affects the team completely. But you're not doing that because that's not who you are. So I don't know. We'll see.
I think him showing up, being suited out, and participating in some of the drills, it's gonna put the pressure on them. But again, they might be ready to get it done, and if his agent is not,
we
then
calling it a hold in.
Yeah, hold in. And his agent is just he's a tough agent. He's a no prisoners type of agent, and so
B Bird said if the negotiations drag on, then Michael could feel disrespected and the price goes up.
Well, he's already made that comment. Michael just tweeted out last week that the prices are going up, so he knows that. So again, I think the pressure to me is on the Cowboys and the agent just to figure it out. And I was going to tell you, I mean, shout out to you, because before the draft and during the draft, on up to the draft, you was talking about Michael Parsons being a Cowboy. I didn't know a whole lot about him at the time. You were, you were the person that was talking about him. And then when he fell to the Cowboys, it was kind of like the CD thing all over again, like for you, because you just didn't really see him being there, but he fell to him. So yeah, you've been following Michael for a long time, and then now you like Michael as a linebacker too. That's what you thought he was.
I mean, that's what he played in college.
Yeah. So
I mean, but he was like everything you wish a linebacker could be. I mean, he could cover. He was like, how fast he is. I mean, he would hit his instinct, it would be like plays in Penn State before the running back would even get the ball. Michael would be hitting the quarterback and the running back in the hole, in the backfield before they even hand the ball off.
Yeah, so they had linebackers, they used to call Penn State, well, they still call it that. It's called linebacker U. So back in the day, so Penn State was the linebacker U. So USC was the running back U. But they had a guy named LeVar Arrington. So he was kind of like a Lawrence Taylor type, kind of like a Ray Lewis type. He was a traditional, linebacker. So Micah is kind of a combination of both. So there's a lot of talk about him playing off ball, talking about his weight. He's lost some weight. So it's gonna be fun to see,
Yeah, because it
what he
benefits
does.
this team. If you think that Izaraku is going to be who he's supposed to be, and then you
Mhm.
have Dante Fowler, and then you have
Sam.
Sam. I mean, really, that's the question that we've been asking. How you gonna get all these guys on the field? Well, the answer to that just by getting Micah to play off ball.
And the answer is just rotating. And I watched, as you know, I was watching a whole bunch of the '90s Cowboys playoff games this past weekend, Father's Day weekend. So I
Yeah.
watched all of the playoff and championship games of that '90s run. But Jimmy was the first coach that started this rotation thing. When he started doing it, a lot of people thought it was silly. It wasn't going to work because traditionally the NFL, you just had a starting tackle, you had a one technique, a three technique, and they just played. But Jimmy was the first coach to do that, and the reason he did it is because he just had way too many guys that needed to play. And so, like Leon Lett, I remember just back then we was reading newspapers. It wasn't really an internet, and during training camp, they just kept talking about this Leon Lett character, and I was like, Leon Lett. His name kept coming up, and then in the preseason games, you would see him play, and then when the season started, he started out just playing a few plays, but when he would come in, he would just wreak havoc. Nobody could block him, and then toward the end of the year, he was playing more, and that's what Jimmy did. So I said all that to say this. I think the answer to your domino is that they're going to play. They're just going to rotate. Sam is going to rotate. He's going to play some. Sam and Nealon, they're going to play inside some on obvious passing downs. That's going to allow them other guys to play, and then they just going to rotate. So that's your answer. And then with Sam, with him coming off that knee, he don't need to be just thrown out there at the beginning of the season anyway. So for him, it's going to be better for him to just play on a pitch count and just not be out there just kind of. So that's going to be better for him. So that's going to work out for him to be
I
in the
agree.
rotation.
I think he gonna be, he already showing signs of that. He's one of those players to me to where he come in and he wreak havoc. He just be doing stuff like hitting the kicker and stuff like that. But
So by the end
get
of the
that under
year, he'll
control.
probably be a whole lot better than where he is when he starts. So, but what are they saying on Reddit? I'm not familiar with Reddit. You got to update me on what's the whole Reddit thing.
All right, so I'm gonna update you. So let's take a look at it. So
So is
all
Reddit
right.
is it like Twitter?
So somewhat. So Reddit is just like it's just like a website where people can post this type of stuff. They can post videos, they can post stories, they can post just a regular post, and then people comment. And when the people comment, it just it just starts a thread, and then you just keep commenting, and it's just it's just a I guess you can call it Twitter. It's like Facebook or something like that.
Turn the
But
music down just a little.
but also on Reddit, everything is anonymous. No one knows who you are. None of your personal information is out there, and you could you could say whatever you want to say on most things. You could cuss if you want to. You could say whatever. No one knows who you are. It's really just a free for all. So, like for instance, 10 hours ago, somebody posted a make or break season from Mozzie with a question mark, and then they put Dallas Cowboys. Dallas run defense was a sieve last season, posting the second worst PFF run defense grade in the NFL. So it says at the bottom, it says if Smith can't figure these things out, though it wouldn't be surprising to see him playing elsewhere in 2026. So what do you think about Mozzie? Is this a make or break season for Mozzie?
You know, I think it just kind of goes back to what I said earlier. I think Mozzie will be okay if he's in a rotation with some guys. If we go into Philadelphia, we follow that up a few weeks later, and we're playing Green Bay, whoever the case may be, and we're featuring Mozzie, I think that's going to be a problem. So I think
Okay, now look,
Mozzie can.
now I'm about to say, now look, then this is what Reddit is all about. Look at the comments. It says the first comment says, "I'm waiting for it to take 3 years to develop crowd to show up again." The second
Mhm.
comment says it's more of a make or stay broken season. Then the third person says no more high draft picks for Michigan, please. Our most recent track record hasn't exactly been great. Then the fourth person said Mozzie equal Taco Charlton. Mozzie cannot shake off a basic block for the life of him. When I watched him in the first mini camp in preseason, I knew he was going to be a buster. I watched Tyler Biotis manhandle and basically own him in the trenches his rookie year. The reason he had more playing time is because of the injuries of Tank and Micah and Sam Williams. Nothing spectacular came about on his watch. Good trade bait though. So, what do you think about that?
He's not good trade bait, but yeah, it's just gonna be one of those things where look, a lot of the content creators, it really just depends. You got content creators that support him, they really high on Mozzie. Then you got some content creators just keeping it real. I know one well-known content creator, he's just out on him. So we're gonna have to just kind of wait and see. What I do know is they need to sign another one tech, preferably, somebody like DJ Reader. They need some veterans in here to play with him. So that's going to be the key to his season is who do we sign? Who do we bring in? He's not somebody that you're going to just start. Like I was saying back in the old NFL days where you put him in there and he's just a guy. That's not what he does.
Okay. And so the next thing we can look at on Reddit is what was the first Dallas Cowboy jersey you owned? What was the first Dallas Cowboy jersey you owned?
Believe it or not, I'm a third generation Cowboy fan. Over the years, I really haven't had. I've never been a jersey guy, so I really haven't had a lot of jerseys. I think. I'm trying to think. It might be. My employees bought me a Drew Pearson jersey. I'm talking about this was like 20 years ago, when I was in my 40s. That's probably the first Cowboy jersey I actually had. Now the knockoff jerseys, like you had one, and one time it comes in a little box. B-Bird was talking about this on our last show. You had one. It had the little helmet set with the pads. I had a couple of those, but
who were they? Who were they?
I think mine was Roger Staubach.
And who was mine? Mine was Emmett.
I can't remember, but yeah. So, but now you know what I'm doing. I'm working on my media room, and I'll be doing when we change up our little show thing. I do want to get all of the 88 jerseys, but I'm not going to wear them. I'm gonna put them up on the wall.
Michael Irvin.
You got an Irvin jersey. So B-Bird, I'm working on a project for my media room. So I want Michael Irvin, Drew, Dez, and CD. Now my all-time favorite player, of course, as you know, is Drew. And my number two, my number two has always been, the 70 Cowboys. You got Staubach, Dorsett, but Dez is in my top Cowboy players of all time.
Yeah,
and that just happened, after Dez.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fourth generation, so my top. I don't want to go through my top 5 Cowboy players. It'll take too long, but I'm gonna say this: I know 2 of them that's in there for sure, all time top Cowboys, and they are both Dez and CD.
Yeah.
So,
and I was an Irvin guy too, of course. But no, I'm an 88 guy. Of course, you can see the 88s on my screen, on my blue screen. So
I was I was Cowboy crazy in the 90s, but I just felt like the older I got, the more involved.
Well, not in the 90s.
Yeah, in the 90s, in the 90s, 97, 98, when I was 8 years old, when I was five, I loved the Cowboys.
You're right.
So, but it wasn't until I probably like around like 13 or 14 to where it became like personal. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, you was going to games the whole time.
Right.
Even probably when you was 5 or 6 years old.
Man, I'm telling everybody.
You went to a lot of games at Texas Stadium.
Man, I tell everybody about the game that we went to. I don't know who. I think they were playing. It was a Monday night game where
playing the Redskins.
They was playing the Redskins, and the Cowboys was losing the whole game, and it was like
Norv Turner was the coach of the Redskins. I don't know if you knew that. That game, he was a coach.
So we had good seats. We were sitting pretty low. We was not sitting high, and we were sitting in the end zone in the corner. So we had good seats. So like we could see the players. You didn't need your binoculars. And then the Cowboys was losing the whole game, And then like basically like on the last play of the game, like the Cowboys, like the Redskins had scored or something, and then on the last
They needed to kick a field goal to win the game,
they
and it
needed
was
to
like a
field
chip
goal.
shot
Yeah, it was a chip shot and they missed it. And then
as
yeah, that's
time
exactly
expired.
as time expired. And then on the very, very, very last play, they kicked it off after they missed the chip shot. The Redskins missed the chip shot. They kicked it off to the Cowboys, and everybody had already walked out of the stadium and everything, but we stayed. Like we had got up and started walking out, but like everybody was like walking out of the stadium, and then like I don't know who ran it back for a touchdown.
Yeah, from what I remember now, they kicked the field goal. They had a chance to kick the field goal to win the game, but they blew the snap, and and by them doing that, the time expired. I think you think about another game.
Whatever game I'm talking about is the one when we left. We was finna leave, and on the last play, they ran the
Yeah.
kickoff back and won.
Okay, what I remember it was a field goal that they missed, and it was a chip shot. We just knew they was gonna lose, so we were walking out. But yeah, it's the same game.
Yeah. And but the crowd was going. We walked out, and the crowd was just like going crazy, and we couldn't figure out why. But they came back. They won it on the last play, and
So
like it was crazy.
Bieber said Dad's played in the wrong generation. He's one of my all-time favorites. Yeah, he's one of my all-time favorites. And then something that was kind of weird this past it might have been yesterday. So Dez went to the Star and talked to the rookies. He was posting about it.
Yeah.
So he went out to the Star, talked to the rookies. So I said all of that to say this. Jerry Jones needs to make this right with Dez. Tyron Smith had his retirement ceremony. Witten, Zach Martin, they need to bring Dez in and do the retirement ceremony thing with the press conference. They need to make that right, B-Bird. And so I'm not happy with Jared and them the way they handled Dez deal, the way they made him stay until all of the people were signed and then cut him at the last minute. And then he still hasn't had that retirement press conference. So they need to do that.
And then a couple years back, they was like, Dez was like trying to get into the game, and like security wasn't letting him in the game, and it's just like, what do you mean? Like, how are you not gonna let him on the field? Like, he was trying to go on the field, and like they wouldn't let him on the field, and like that was just like absolutely crazy. You know what I'm saying? It's just like it's not right. You know what I'm saying? So, but anyways, so let's look at Reddit and see what's going on Reddit. This one right here says Pickens. If Pickens flops, the Cowboys offense may disappoint. If he truly shines, he could price himself out in 2026 free agency. If and when Dallas extends Parson, it will have 3 players earning at least $34 million annually. I want to say this. That means absolutely nothing. We were just talking about this about like 2 weeks ago. The Cowboys are like not in the top teams with the high price players. You just have to figure out how to do it, and it's a way to do it because there's several teams that do it. The Eagles do it, the Bills do it, the Chiefs do it, the Ravens do it. All of the teams that win, they do it. And that's what separates the teams that win from the teams that lose. It's just like all of this contract talk. The teams that be winning, their players have this mentality where it's just like the salary cap don't exist. That's how they think. And the teams that lose, they be thinking and they operate as if they can only have a certain amount of players, and they got to draft players that ain't gonna have prices.
That's Stephen Jones. That's what Stephen Jones has programmed Cowboy fans for 30 years to think that.
And see, now me, I have a real problem. I really have a problem. I really have something on my mind and on my heart when it comes to George Pickens, because I just know that he is going to transition this offense. He's going to transform this offense. He is one of those players. Like, to me, it's just like I was thinking about this last night. I was like, man, we was talking about what's my guy name? Devontae Adams. We wanted Devontae Adams so bad. And then we wanted Cooper Kupp so bad. We were just so hurt when Cooper Kupp was like he cost too much and all this kind of stuff. Then we wanted the rookie so bad. We want the rookie. We wanted Ted so bad. We wanted one of them so bad. I mean, we even got to a point to where we were just like, we don't even care if it's a top 10 receiver.
Amari
We
Cooper.
just want Amari Cooper, anybody. We don't even care. And lo and behold, I would have taken George Pickens over every single person that I just named. Every single one. I would take George Pickens over Devontae Adams. I would take George Pickens over Cooper Kupp. I would take George Pickens over Amari Cooper. I would take him over Ted. I would take him over all of them. And I think that he's better than all of them. And I think that he younger. He's not younger than Ted, but I mean, he's just like, okay, so he's gonna transform this team because he's the number one receiver on his own. And the way that he came in at the right time on a new offense. Shotty, they developing scheme with him. They talking about it in training camp, how they confusing the defense and getting him and CD wide open. And you know, when Dak is healthy, he's a dynamic passer anyway. So the Cowboys when Dak had been healthy, they have had good offenses. Now, when it comes to points scored and all that, now you have the argument out there, is a garbage time and all this kind of stuff. But you know, uh, the bottom line is, Dak when healthy, CD when healthy, when the offensive line is healthy, they can bang with the best of them. We've seen this time and time again. They just have to do it consistently in the playoffs. That's what they missing. And you can point to numerous things on the cause of them losing in the playoffs. When talk about Green Bay, not all on that. During the headlights, sure, but you Dan Quinn has to get his defense out of zone.
But
You
Dan
can't,
Quinn got blew out in the playoffs again in the NFC Championship game last year. The same way. It was closer in the first half, but the Eagles, the final score, they got smoked, and it was the defense couldn't stop them.
And then on top of that, you talk about McCarthy. McCarthy, no, he didn't get fired from here. He played his contract out. But the reason why he was, really relieved of his duties is because of no innovation. And it's the same thing that happened with him against in Green Bay. Teams after teams play you enough and they develop a defense for your scheme because it hasn't changed in 20 years. So I mean, when you're trying to win a championship, winning playoff games, when you're going against the best athletes and the best brains, you have to be innovative. Your coach has to be innovative. He has to be, your coordinators have to be the best of the best. Your players have to play. It takes a conglomerate. So I said, go ahead.
Yeah, and we talked about it. You want to see, even though he wasn't innovative, if everybody had been healthy, I still think it would have came together a better for him. He would have had a chance to do something. He probably would have had a chance for, Dak and CD and even Shotty again to pull him in a locker room and say, hey, we need to. But he had to have the players to even have a chance. And like you said before, if they had everybody healthy, the second half of the season would have looked different. But I want to go back to what you said about Pickens, and I'm gonna piggyback on something that you said earlier about this conversation that Jerry's having with Micah. You got to believe that Micah, Jerry, Dak, and CD, they all talking to Pickens about how this year could go, and they probably telling him just to be patient. If you don't catch 100 passes and get 12 touchdowns, just know long term, you're going to be a guy here. You're going to be able to make money. We got you. So I said all that to say this. I don't think people should panic if we get to week 10 and he just doesn't have a whole bunch of touchdowns and a whole bunch of yards. Because this, for me, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint with him. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, see, my thing is what my nervousness and my anxiety comes in is just the opposite of that happens. What happens if he just balls out, which I think he gonna do? What happens if we get to game 10 and he already got 1,000 yards? What happens if he gets to game 10 and he got 10 touchdowns and CD got 7? What happens then when he emerges as, okay, this is who we thought he was going to be, and this is who he has not been able to be because he hasn't had a good quarterback, but now he has a good quarterback and they are torching the league. So what happens next year when he's done that?
I don't really have any evidence to say that things are going to be different, but I just believe they're going to break the mold. I think they're going to figure out a way to get him signed to get some other guys signed. So I just think they're gonna figure it out. And then you got the franchise tag too. Remember that. So I just
Absolutely.
think he's a guy that, and Shotty likes him. I just think if he has the season that you're talking about, I just kind of feel like they're gonna figure out a way to get it done. Some of these things that we're talking about, the Cowboys are at the point of no return on some of these things. They're no longer in a position, and Bieber talked about this earlier. They can no longer talk about the salary cap and how it limits you. They just can't do it anymore. So with some of these players, Micah, they just not at the point with Michael where they can play these contract games with him. They not so some of these things they just passed the point where they can do all of that stuff. It's a
You know what? And
different deal
you
now.
made it. You're making a good point because we said that last year. Because after last year, when they didn't do anything in the off season and the media just blew up, and that was all that everyone was talking about. That's all that we was talking about. How just crazy it was for them to do that and what this could mean, and it just they couldn't get around that. I mean, that was everybody's talking point for the rest of the season. And then they had a bad season on top of that. So you can kind of correlate those two things together, even though we know it was mostly about the injuries and it was about McCarthy. It just happened to go hand in hand with them not doing anything. And then Jerry coming out and making statements like we couldn't afford Derrick Henry when that just set off an alarm. It's just like, no, that is a lie. It's not like you're not knowledgeable of these things. You just totally lied about that. That's not true at all. That's just not true at all. And and everybody knows that. And so, kind of like you said, they probably gonna break the mold because it's not much they can do. They can't talk about the salary cap. They did that for as long as they could. They milked that dry, and it's no longer a thing that they can say. So next on Reddit says a defining season for Dak. Is this a defining season for Dak?
I don't know. I've been telling everybody. I've been communicating. I was tweeting with Star, landlord and some other people that follow me. I follow them. I just think that Dak is in his John Elway phase. John Elway, legendary quarterback. I told me and Outlaw was conversating. He had his top 5 quarterbacks of all time. I had Elway over Marino, but Elway was 0-3. He couldn't win a big game. A lot of people were saying that was like a negative on his career. He's gonna go into the Hall of Fame either way, which that's not gonna happen with Dak. But at the end of the day, Elway couldn't get over the hump until they got Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp. They had Ed McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey's dad. They had let's see, Rod. What was his name? So they redid the offense. They brought in Shanahan defensively. They hired a coach. I can't think of the defensive the coordinator's name. So he was like a Spagnuolo type coordinator, and so they just made the team better around Elway. They ran the ball. They played better defense. They had better players, Shannon Sharp, and he went out. So Elway won his first Super Bowl. This is what I was talking to Star about. So Dak is 31 or 32.
Mm-hmm.
Elway won his first Super Bowl at 37 years old. So he won the Super Bowl at 37 and 38. So Dak is just 31. So I said all that to say this. Dak, he's got a 4-year contract. He can absolutely do what Elway did. He's just 31. So no, this is not a make or break. They just got to keep building a team. They got to we talk about the defensive line. They got to get the line. They had a chance to redo the running back room. We're not there yet. So this ain't all on Dak. So they just got to build a better team around him. He don't have everything that he needs. I don't think as we are. The team is better than it was. They're not there yet though. So to answer your question, no, it's not all on him.
Yeah, I agree with that too. So now this is from Reddit. This is Nick Harris. So we follow Nick Harris. Shout out to Nick Harris. And we've been on Nick Harris. So
yeah, he be doing some. I mean, Nick Harris, he's like the old school reporter that would actually like break stories and give you the inside scoop. A lot of our reporters are not really doing that. Quiet as kept. He does.
Yeah, no, he does. When he says something, I take it as a fact. So like he was talking about. I'm looking at Reddit right here. He was talking about Jake Ferguson looked like he added some good weight. You know, and I've also heard him say the linebacker group was flying around Shamar James and Buddy Johnson. Now, Shamar James is that 5th round pick that they traded up for. I think. Something tells me that he gonna be good. I don't know. It just seems like to me like that's the pick that doesn't make sense. Like y'all could have took a running back right there, but they took him, and then so it's just like everybody's kind of writing him out. He hasn't.
If he makes the team, he's gonna make the team, and Damon Clark is gonna be out. That's the spot that he's trying to take. I don't see him playing over Murray, Sanborn, Leofile, Overshawn coming back. So he's just gonna be that. I think he's gonna be that 5th linebacker. But B-Bird made a comment about the linebacking room. They redid the linebacking room. I think they did a really good job. And so I think the linebackers are stacked. It's gonna be competition. Our linebackers, they're gonna be bringing smoke because you're gonna have to if you want to play. So that's we redid the linebacker room, and they need to do the same thing with the running back room. They had a chance to do it, and they whiffed. But yeah, the linebacker room is.
I think the running back room is gonna be the same way. I think that you're gonna have to play like. I think that they're gonna be going hard in that running back room to play, and I think that like they're gonna be going.
You like
hard.
them more than I do.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be going hard. I think that like Lukey, it's gonna be hard to like if they give him a shot, it's gonna be hard to take his spot on the team. If they give, like Phil Maffa and Jaden Blue and like the two like Thomas. I mean like what's his name? Our 2 people that we traded for, Miles Sanders and
Javonte
Williams. It's gonna be hard to bench them because they're gonna be playing hard because they know this is their last shot. They already getting rolled out. It's gonna be hard they're gonna be playing really good. I mean, it's gonna be like, the only thing that's gonna get them out of here is if they physically cannot do it. If they can physically do it, they can pick up the system and hit the hole hard. They're gonna be giving it they all.
So I was talking to your Uncle Eric. He really likes Miles Sanders. He still think he's got something. So I mean, we're gonna see if you guys are right. You're a lot higher on the running back room than I am. I would have much rather had Devin Neal and the running back from the U. We had a chance to get him, and but yeah, it's so just watching the re-education of the 90s Cowboys, it was just amazing watching those games, just the running game, the way they relied on the running game. Alvin Harper, he didn't have a lot of catches, but they just went to him for big plays. I mean, he just did some incredible things. So I think the formula is there for Dallas to do what they did. They just need to get the running game going, and they already got their Michael Irvin. You could really say CD and Micah. I mean, CD and Pickens are that guy. But what they did, they just ran the ball and they dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides. So, and Troy didn't have to do a lot. That's where Dak should be. Dak should just have to come out, throw the ball 20, 22 times a game, maybe 25 at the max. Just let these other guys just do their thing. And but yeah, that's kind of where we are.
They saying Breakfast Band 4 been looking pretty good.
Brought us threw some cold water on that a couple of times. So he said something that was pretty interesting to me. And he said it about both players. He said to him, when he watched practice, even watching mini camp and OTAs, he said that Reverend Span Ford still looks kind of awkward to him. He still looks he doesn't look natural. You can just still see that he kind of struggles with catching the ball. And he kind of said the same thing about Schoon. So I think they're not there yet. I just don't think that people want to see Ferg. They want to see somebody compete with Ferg. I just don't see it myself. And plus Ferg is Dak's guy. But Brevin Spanford and Schoon, I absolutely think that Fairweather and John Stevens, if they're healthy, they can give them a run for their money. And if Brevin Spanford is really a threat to anybody, to me, it's Schoon. It's not Ferg. Brevin Span
Yeah,
Ford, to me, is
I think.
competing for the number 2.
Yeah, for sure. That's what it is. Jake Ferguson's spot is solidified. I don't know. Like I said,
Yeah.
I'm expecting a Pro Bowl year out of him. Um, and then Kavontae Turpin is a lot of people talking about Turp being involved, and even Turp was saying that he's been more involved in the game
I
plan
I
this
watched
year.
the video today. I'm trying to give a person credit. I can't remember who it was. They showed every catch that he had last season,
Mhm.
and so people were commenting on the fact that the highlight tape, basically, it was like he was a number 2 when you watch just the highlight reel. But people were commenting on the fact that a lot of the plays he was running, they really not the kind of plays he should be running. He's not a 2. They had him running like over the
Fly,
middle, huh?
go routes.
Well, they had him running a lot of routes where he's catching the ball like in traffic, like he's Michael Irvin or CD. He's not that kind of player.
Like I remember
So
this one play specifically where Dak just like the Dak just backed up and threw it to him right over the middle of the field, and he caught it in traffic with 3 people.
yeah, so a lot of the plays he was running were players where he was literally just getting racked up. But so I said all that to say this. He's a talent. What they got to do, and I told the person today that they just got to scheme him open, give him the ball where he's just catching the ball. It's basically one-on-one. He's not in a big crowd of people. He caught a pass against Houston. It was like a slant, and he took it to the house. But
Mhm.
when he caught it, nobody was around him, and they had no chance to catch him. So those are the kind of plays that he needs. And he had a pass against the 49ers, and somebody was commenting on that today too. They threw him a ball against the 49ers last year in that horrible game. He went up the left sideline, and Dak threw the ball deep, go up against the sideline. Again, that's the kind of play that you're gonna throw to CD or Pickens. He's not that kind of receiver. And people were all over Turpin for not catching that ball. That wasn't an easy catch. Okay.
Uh, and then I was like, remember the
He's
play
not that
against
kind of
the Commanders?
receiver.
Remember the play against the Commanders when Bland broke the record? It was just like we had never seen him run or that connect with him on a
He
fly route.
he ran a post and he was wide open.
He was wide open,
And he
and
scored.
it's
That's
like,
that's the kind of plays that he needs. Now, he did a lot of wheel routes in the one I saw today. That's the kind of balls that you need to get to him. But McCarthy was just running him into a lot of traffic. That's not the way. But I said I'd like to say this. They absolutely got to get him involved, but they got to get him involved the right way. But
listen,
with our
I make
receivers that we got,
yeah.
with Pickens, CD, Ferguson, Blue, Turpin is probably going to be just wide open, just one-on-one. He's going to be unstoppable if they use him right.
He's gonna be unstoppable. He's gonna be lined up against linebackers. It's not gonna
Yeah,
be no kind of answer for that
yeah.
because
And Blue
when you
too.
try to when Blue come out the backfield, if you don't have an answer for him, he's gonna run right by you. They're gonna have to spy him with a safety or something.
Well,
So
we
it's just
saw him
like
do it against Ohio State last year in the
he
playoff
did.
game. And we saw him. He
He
scored
did.
twice. And you remember Trayvon Henderson from Ohio State got that screen pass before halftime and went 80 yards. So that's the kind of play Blue is. Turpin is too. So now it's just on Shotty to create the mismatches, and
Mhm. And
that's
I just
that's
want
kind of
to
what you got.
remind everybody, I don't like throwing. I'm not trying to just throw shots at McCarthy, but let's just be clear. One of his stigmas, one of his things is that he does not know how to use his talent. Okay, he did not know how to do it. He used Zeke when he should have been using Rico Dowdle. They ran Rico Dowdle way too late.
Hmm.
I mean, he was throwing shots at the front office doing that, but still, when you got Malik Davis on the practice squad, we trying to figure out why Malik Davis wasn't playing. Then you have Turpin. He was using Turpin the wrong way the whole time. He
He
used
used Deuce Vaughn the wrong way.
Deuce Vaughn. I think Deuce Vaughn is gonna make this team this year, and I think that he gonna make the team because he's a shoddy guy, and and his offensive coordinator is a line is a coach now for the team. So I think if he has a chance to make the team, it's this year. If he don't make the team, then so be it. But I think also if he makes the team, I feel like he's gonna have an effect on the offense because I feel like he's gonna be used right, and they didn't use Hunter Luepke right. When
Yeah.
Hunter Luepke, every time Hunter Luepke is thrown, every time his number is called, he makes a dynamic play. He catches the ball out the backfield. He runs with passion. He runs. He evades tackles. He had the one blunder against Miami when on the previous play. If Tony Pollard would have just ducked his shoulder, he wouldn't even. He would have went in the end zone and he wouldn't even had to make that play.
So I was
So
watching them games this weekend.
yeah,
I hate to keep going back. You should just see how they use Daryl Johnson. Just amazing. They would literally every game I watch, they would give Daryl Johnson about 5 carries a game. That's it. They would throw it to him out of the backfield. He was making plays. So again, it's just a matter of just using your see, Jimmy, they just didn't waste talent. If you had talent, they was gonna figure out a way. Defensively or offensively, you were gonna play. And you didn't have to start. It wasn't just Michael, Troy, and Emmett. If you just had any kind of talent, you were going to be able to display your talent. Daryl Johnson, he was like very effective, but he didn't get a lot of carries, but he would get carries. That's Hunter Lukey. He just needs 4 or 5 carries a game. That's it. Or just that's all you need,
that's all you need,
and he will be effective.
He will
And
be
the way they use Daryl Johnson out of the backfield, Hunter Lukey can do that.
I'm telling you,
The 49ers do it with their the 49ers. Is it use check?
Yeah.
He just use check gets 3 carries a game, maybe. They throw it to him out of the backfield.
And it'd be like 10-yard, 12-yard gains.
Yeah. And so again, you just got to be a good coach and use your personnel. And the Cowboys, I think for the first time in years, to me, they have the talent to where they got to figure out how are we going to play these guys. We got the defensive linemen, the edges, well, not defensive linemen, the edge players that we got. Now you got the receivers and the tight ends speaking up. The running back room, you like it. Now, Shotty just got to figure out a way to get all of these guys involved and use like all your talent.
I feel like for the first time, Shotty got what are the generals names in Star Wars? What are the white ones? What are they called?
In Star Wars?
Yeah, the white dudes the white they have on the white.
The Jedi Knights?
They're not Jedi Knights. They up under Darth Vader.
The Sith? I don't know what they call. I don't know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? They dressed in white. They all dressed in white and they walk around with the guns.
Oh, you talking about the stormtroopers?
Yeah, the stormtroopers. You know what I'm saying? So Shotty got a lot of stormtroopers behind him. All these coaches, they are not little soft coaches like they're not bland coaches or stale coaches like how McCarthy had.
I don't know if you saw this. Not to cut you off, then we can wrap. He said something the other day that I think is absolutely true. He said that if they win, people are gonna raid his coaching staff, and I believe it.
Oh yeah, he said that. He said that. He said, yeah, we gotta prepare for this coach staff to get raided.
Yeah, if they win, you're not gonna be able to keep Clayton Adams. And I don't know if Connor Riley wants to be, a head coach, but Clayton Adams definitely does. If they have some success,
practice, and he was having success.
Yeah, so if they start winning, that's gonna be the one of the things but that's gonna be a good problem to have. But yeah, they're not gonna be able to keep some of the coaches they have because
I said this was my prediction. I said, of course we want to win it all, but I said that this year they're gonna get farther than they ever got. Probably get to the NFC Championship. If everybody stays healthy, but I think that just imagine how this team would be if they have a year like that and then have another offseason like they had this year, next year. Imagine what type of team we would be if they have the type of draft that they had this year. Just imagine what would happen if they have one of those next year. And imagine if they have like one position that they got to really sew up.
I hate to keep going back to it.
Imagine if they, did that next year. We would be unstoppable for the foreseeable future.
So what you just said right there, that's what I watched this weekend. What the Cowboys kept doing, they just kept having good drafts. They kept adding good players. They kept doing the coaching thing year after year after year. They just kept adding to it, and that's how they built the dynasty. So that's what Jerry, Steven, and McClay and Shotty got to do. They got to just keep putting good drafts together, and next thing you know, you can just make a five-year run and just go out and win a bunch of games. That's what they did in the 90s. You thought they would have been, you know, just leveling out, but they just kept adding good players. But in a lot of their players, they wasn't high picks. They just drafted good. Leon Lett, people like Larry Brown. Larry Brown, the draft was 12 rounds. He was a 12th round pick. A lot of these guys I watched this weekend, they wasn't like 1, 2, or 3 picks. They just kept adding.
And we
Darren Woodson was a 3rd round pick.
Remember, we went over that. We was looking at these rosters, and we were just like, dog, all these players on these rosters, they are not 1st and 2nd round picks. Not all of them.
I told you. I said when we was doing the draft, this was my first year really getting off into the draft as a content creator.
Mm-hmm.
Them 5th round picks, you can find good players. You just have to draft them.
But I want to just say this though. Yeah, you right about that. This was your first year getting into the draft, but I want to say this though. You picked a good year, and this was kind of an anomaly because these players in this draft right here was different than the players it was different than any other draft.
Well,
these players
where I push back on that is every draft is good. You just gotta pick the good players.
Yeah, every draft is good, but I'm talking about like it's not every draft was not as good as this one. Well, listen, every draft is good, but it's not. But the difference about this draft was it was like 10 players at the top, right? It was 10 players at the top, and then from after that, the next 100 players, they all the same.
I think they were. If you go back in that 23 and 24 draft when they took Schoon and Mozzie, when they took Tyler Guyton, they had way better players.
See, that's not what I'm talking about. Because
but I'm saying in later rounds too.
Yeah, because that's what I'm talking about. Those were high picks. You know what I'm saying? We talking about like 5th round Damian Martinez, and we talking about like remember that the Eagles got that linebacker. He was the best linebacker. He was rated like 4th on Tankathon, and he was like rated like 5th or 6th overall. Like he was ranked like 5th or 6th overall as a whole.
I think every draft have good players. You just gotta go find them and pick them, and they just haven't done a good job with that. They did a good job this year, but in the 23 and 24 draft, there was good players on the board in the 4th and 5th round, and they just didn't take them. And they would be better right today. Let's go ahead and wrap.
Yeah. So, man, this was a good show, man. I like the whole Reddit thing. We're gonna keep doing the Reddit thing. That was cool, right?
Make that a segment every show.
Yeah, we're gonna make that a segment because it just gives us content to talk about, and we can kind of talk about what everybody else is talking about. So we're gonna keep doing the Reddit thing, and and we can do the Blogging the Boys thing too. Let's do a Blogging the Boys segment next time. We can just go on Blogging the Boys and see what the topics are that they're talking about, and we can elaborate. But everybody, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It's countdown time. We're getting close to the season. We're getting close to training camp. So everybody, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and look for us in a couple days. We're probably gonna come back Friday. So look for us on Friday. We're gonna do a Friday night live and talk about what's going on with the Cowboys. So y'all make sure y'all, like I said again, comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all on the next one.